Hi, this is Jess Mahler, and this is my final screencast for Module 8. As a reminder, I am a learning support teacher. I teach both 7th grade learning support English and 8th grade learning support reading, so I'll be discussing both of those as I create my plan for the fall. So first, my SMART goal for my English class is to improve their written expression skills, and they're going to demonstrate a 5% growth between their score on the fall and the spring text-dependent analysis essays. In order to reach that goal, I plan to have writing conferences with my students to help them receive feedback for their work and make improvements, and also for them to receive that individualized support. And I'm going to track their progress throughout the school year, since they're going to be writing one in the fall and the spring, and then I will analyze the results after the spring essay. This is my SMART goal for reading class. So the goal is to improve students' reading comprehension skills. They're going to demonstrate a growth of their Lexile score each marking period when they take the Scholastic Reading Inventory Assessment. For this one, the students will receive small group instruction, and they'll also have practice activities using the online adaptive software. So I will track the progress throughout the school year since they take this every marking period, and I will analyze the results at the end of the year after the 4th marking period when they took their last Scholastic Reading Inventory Assessment. And my final SMART goal is the non-consumption opportunity. So I chose to have virtual field trips with COVID and everything that's happening. I don't see field trips coming back anytime soon, especially with all the lack of funding and lack of teachers and all that. So I think teachers should start looking towards these virtual field trips because it's a great way to offer students some real life learning and also kind of pair it with, what you're learning inside the classroom. Virtual field trips are really cost effective. You don't really have to pay anything unless you're paying for a certain program. You don't have to worry about COVID. There's not really any behaviors other than the classroom management aspect, and students can still learn while having fun. The best part about these virtual field trips is that they can really be completed anytime throughout the school year, and they can be reused from year to year. So I've chosen the station rotation model for my blended learning option, and I chose this because it allows students to meet with the teacher on a consistent basis. So I plan to have a teacher group that will be either individual or small group instruction, and then there will be 2 other station rotations, one of them being the computer and then the other one just being independent work. Before implementing this in my classroom, I'm going to review how to appropriately use technology to complete those learning activities, also review how to log on to the computer, and I'm going to explicitly review these routines with my students for 2 to 3 weeks before implementing as suggested by the textbook. The more students practice and get into a routine, the easier it will be for you as a teacher to manage that class. My school district also pays for an adaptive learning software called Edmentum. And right now, most of our teachers just kind of use it as a lab rotation, but I think we can start incorporating this into the actual classroom and use more of a station rotation model. So here's my classroom layout. I'm just going to show you the picture first, and then I'll go into the 3D model of it. Clicking this link, it goes to that Kaplan floor planner website. So each rotation has its own area. So up here I have the computer rotation. Over here I have like the independent reading or independent work rotation. Over here is either a collaborative or working with the teacher station. And then if a teacher is working one-on-one with a student, I have a separate area over here that's kind of private so a student can feel comfortable speaking with the teacher in a one-on-one situation. The computers will be lined up with the screens facing outward. It's suggested in the textbook to do that because the teacher needs to know what students are doing at all times. And then I'm going to have directions and expectations provided at each of the stations so that students know what's expected of them. And then I will also be putting additional activities at each of the stations in case a student finishes early. So here is a 3D model of my classroom layout. So again, you can see the computers with the screens facing outwards. I have a small group, like independent station over here, independent reading. I have a table here set up for a small group collaborative rotation. And then over here, I have an area for the teacher and student to meet and receive individual one-on-one support. So I like this little setup. Obviously, I would add more fun and color and other things and smart boards and projectors and things like that. But with this website, the Kaplan website, I just kind of went with the furniture and chairs and physical space, how it's organized. I wanted everything to be kind of separate from each other so that students aren't really getting meshed in with another group. They know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing instead of being part of another group on accident. So now here are the blended learning tools that I plan to use with my classroom this upcoming fall. This links to the Module 6 Google Doc where we had to sign up for a tool to review. And I went through each of those tools and I picked out a few that I'll definitely be able to use in my reading and English classes in the fall. So the CK12 website had lots of writing and spelling lessons. BrainPop had tons of educational videos. Khan Academy had educational videos as well as practice activities. IXL is a bunch of practice activities, and then Edmentum, which is something that my school district pays for, that is an adaptive learning software. So I plan to implement all of these blended learning tools into my classroom in the online computer rotation of the station rotation. And I was actually really impressed with this IXL website. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of people post about it, but I never actually explored it myself. But I went in and I found a lot of useful activities. And for example, when you get a question wrong, it'll explain why you got it wrong. And so I think that's important for students to see, if you get it wrong, here's the reason why, and here's the explanation so that next time maybe they can get it right. So now here's the student roles and classroom rules and expectations. This will be posted at each of the station rotations as well as posted online to my classroom Canvas LMS. So I'm going to pop over and show you each of those. So here is my English expectations. So at the top here, I just have, what class is it? Where are we? What kind of blended learning model we will be using. Here's rotation expectations, what students need to do when they're at each of the rotations. Down here, I have behavior expectations, so how they should be acting in each of the rotations. I have a little spot down here if you were absent, and then if they need to contact me for any reason. And then here are my expectations for Read 180. Again, I have the 8th grade learning sport reading, Central Dauphin Middle School at the top, so they know they're in the right class. I have the explanation of the blended learning model. And Read 180 is a station rotation curriculum, so I included the video that explains what each of the stations will include. In addition to the video, I also have it laid out at the bottom here, what is expected in each of the rotations. I have directions how to log into the Read 180 software, behavior expectations for when students are at each of the stations, a space for when students are absent, and again, contact information at the bottom if they need to get a hold of me. My biggest ahas of the course is that there's just so many different types of blended learning. I was under the assumption where it was pretty much either a station rotation or you can do a flipped classroom. But taking this course taught me that there's a ton of different options and a lot of different ways that students can build their independence while also still completing the learning activities. For example, I've never heard of the flex or a la carte or enriched virtual options. I just kind of assumed that was done in cyber school and not really incorporated much into any in-person schools. So I think that's cool that that can be a part of blended learning as well instead of just online virtual. Another big aha that I had in this course is that there's a ton of online resources that we can use for blended learning. I was mistakenly wrong. And I thought that you had to pay all this money for this curriculum or this adaptive software. And really, that's not the case. In Module 6, we had a lot of different resources, and it really opened my eyes to all the things that I could be using right now with my students and not paying any money for. So that is something that I'm definitely going to be looking at, is incorporating those resources into my blended learning classroom, as well as maybe trying some different types of blended learning. I feel like I've been in my comfort zone here with the station rotation model, and that's what I'm going to, start with at the beginning of the year. But maybe I can work towards something else in the future. There's a lot of different ways, and especially how technology has been changing, I feel that my teaching and blended learning will need to change as well. As far as additional questions, my really only big question is, how do you get students motivated to want to complete their work on the computer? I find it such a struggle whenever I have my students log in. It's like when they open their blended learning online activity, they also open up like three more tabs of like YouTube videos and music and this and that. And I just feel it's very frustrating for me that if I'm going to be having an online activity, they just try to do everything else they can while they're on the computer. So getting my students kind of like trained to know the expectations and complete their learning paths and activities online when they're supposed to. So that's kind of my big question, is how do you motivate the students and, I don't know, just get them to do their work and not complain too much about it. We do have adaptive software in my district, and I feel that the students complain about it so much because they think it's very, very low for them. However, I tell them, I'm like, well, this is the effort that you put in is the activities that it gives you to complete. So if you think the activities are too easy, that means you're not giving your best effort. So, I mean, that's kind of what I've been telling my students, but it hasn't really been helping. So that's my question going into the school year, is to try to make those expectations known and try to make the students understand how important this is and how it's going to help them learn. So I learned a lot of great things in this course, and I'm really excited to have blended learning in my classroom this upcoming school year.